Hey, welcome real estate fans to another episode of Seattle's Real Estate Podcast. I'm your host, Dan Edwards, the managing broker of the Seattle real estate team here in the greater Seattle area and serving the East Side and everywhere in Washington State we can help you. It's Wednesday, April 3rd, 2024. We're coming to you live from Facebook, YouTube, and Instagram. Please feel free to send us your questions on any of those platforms. We can answer any questions in real time. Also, if you are watching this, please press the subscribe button, which might be over here. I think so. It's over here. Subscribe and the little notification bell so that you hear when we're going live and when new editions are posted. You can also listen to us on all your favorite podcasting software, whether it be Apple Podcast or Spotify. You will find us there. Real estate fans, we've got a great show today. We're going to start off with our Eastside edition of what you need to know about moving to Seattle. Then we're going to have a great mortgage moment with our good friend Tucker. We're going to be talking about down payments. And then we will finish off with our good friend Doug Peterson, Get Priorities Straight. We're going to talk about where did all my money go? So it's going to be a great conversation today. I look forward to answering your questions. We've got some new bumpers here. So let's get started with our Real Talk segment. Okay, that was weird. Like the video started and stopped. Can we try it again? Must be a bandwidth issue. We were going to be like dazzling you with all this cool stuff. Whatever. I don't know what's going on with that. All right. So today's topic is, hey, so you're moving to Seattle, right? Last week we did the Eastside edition, the Seattle edition. I was wearing my flannel. Today, a more traditional casual wear Eastside. So, the first thing you need to know when we are considering a move to Seattle and considering the Eastside is the Eastside is located east of Lake Washington. Now we'll come back to why that's important, but essentially, if you take a map of Seattle and you look at it from the sky, in last week's episode we talked about this giant lake in the middle of Seattle, the city of Seattle. Technically, it's not. It's to the east of the city limits of Seattle, because directly east of that lake, as the crow flies, is the city of Bellevue. City of Bellevue is the kind of economic hub, if you will, of the East Side. So essentially all things flow towards it. Of course, we've got other cities as well. We've got cities like Redmond and Kirkland, and we'll talk about some more of the other suburbs and cities on the East Side. So another thing that you need to know about moving to Seattle or the East Side is the East Side is closer to the mountains. So Seattle itself is right there on Elliott Bay. And of course, there are mountains to the west, which are the Olympic Mountains. But for the East Side, our Cascades are the mountain range to the east. So living on the East Side, you don't have to cut through traffic to get to the mountains. I think that's a really important consideration, especially if you enjoy hiking, biking, mountain biking, regular biking, if you like winter sports like skiing and inner tubing, you're about 20 minutes closer to those mountains. Another thing that you need to know if you're thinking about moving to Seattle and the East Side is the school districts are better. It is a statistical fact, I guess is another way to put it, that stuff on the East Side, schools on the East Side just are a little bit better. So I won't knock Seattle schools any more than that. I'll just say the ones on the East Side are better. Number 4 thing you need to know is Boeing, which is the company that builds all those airplanes, those big 737s. Actually, the Renton plant, which builds a majority of 737s, is down in the south part of the East Side. So a lot of the traffic flows in that direction in the mornings when people are on their way to work. Also coming up from Kent, which is in southeastern King County, you have that Boeing plant, Renton. And I would say Renton kind of marks the southernmost tip of what we call the East Side. Some would argue that it's not part of. I wouldn't. I say it's totally fine. One of our good friends, Tucker, lives in that area. So I'm not saying he's not an East Sider. He's definitely on the east side of Lake Washington. But Kent would be a little too far to be considered the East Side. Redmond. So cities. So yeah, that's what I was going to say. Is the number 5 thing you need to know is Redmond, Bellevue, and Kirkland. These plus the kind of the surrounding areas are known as the tech epicenter. Now you have Microsoft, who founded, the personal computer industry, right? Microsoft. Then you have Google now in the area in Kirkland. You also have Amazon has some campuses over on the east side. And let's see. Oh, I know it. Renton is it Renton or Kent that has Blue Origin? Let's see. We'll see. My fact checkers tell me on this one. I think it's Kent. So not necessarily on the east side, but if you are living on the east side, commuting down to Blue Origin. So definitely innovation and technology, aerospace and technology on the east side. Lots and lots of it. Okay, let's also, the number 6 thing you need to know is more suburban style neighborhoods. Some of the neighborhoods we talked about last year were a little bit more urban. I wouldn't say that they aren't family friendly, but I would say this is more of a suburbs style neighborhoods. So you have some tremendous view neighborhoods like Newport Hills. You've got some bedroom communities like Sammamish, which is a city. You've got some waterfront property between small and medium-sized lakes like Cottage Lake up in Woodinville. Lake Sammamish is a big, good-sized lake. We'll talk a little bit about that. But okay, the number 7 thing you need to know is casual fashion, but a little more formal than Seattle. So generally, work casual is the deal, but there's probably a few more people that dress to the nines on the east side. I'm not judging anybody from Seattle. I prefer to dress down. I'm just saying that you're going to find more. In downtown Bellevue, you've got Neiman Marcus, you have the W Hotel, etc. So number 8 thing you need to know is there is public transportation, and the light rail, which spans from SeaTac, which is south of Seattle, the airport, will go through Seattle, across the I-90 bridge, and into Bellevue, and all the way out to Redmond. So that, according to the latest news reports, should start running April 27th. That was an article in the Seattle Times that I just read. The number 9, and the thing is it's connected to the northbound lane train that also goes through the University of Washington and all the way up to Northgate and Linwood. Linwood won't be open until maybe 2 years from now. I'm not sure. So public transportation, also buses and stuff like that, but the light rail is a huge new thing that's happening. Number 9, the thing that you need to know about the east side is Lake Washington access and Lake Sammamish access. So these are 2 places that in the summertime people are usually out floating on the access on one of these 2 lakes. Lake Washington, you can enter from like probably all the way up in Juanita in the north, Kirkland, Bellevue, several places, Medina, Newport Shores, Coulon Park down in Renton. So there's about at least six public accesses that I know on the east side. And then Lake Sammamish actually has only 2 public accesses, one in the north and one on the south. There is a private boat launch as well on the west side, but this is a 7-mile lake, Lake Sammamish, so it's a bit smaller than Lake Washington, but you'll have tons of waterfront properties both on the east and west side of the lake, and the north side and the south side. A lot of great views from some of the east side neighborhoods of the lakes and of the Cascades. And number 10, thing you need to know if you're moving to Seattle, Eastside Edition, is it's still close enough to Seattle to enjoy all those sports organizations from professional soccer, rugby, baseball, and football, and hopefully basketball someday. So, all right, that wraps up a very long segment, but you needed to know those 10 things if you're thinking of moving to Seattle, Eastside Edition. Thanks for watching. We're going to have a short commercial break, and when we come back, we're going to talk with our good friend Tucker Maxwell. We're going to be talking about down payments. So join us after this short commercial break.
Forum Social House in downtown Bellevue is reopened for Phase 2. Enjoy our chef-cultivated menu, 369 happy hour on Fridays from 4 to 7 p.m., and of course, all the gaming your heart desires. From the interactive Topgolf Swing Suite to cutting-edge miniature golf and assorted table games, Forum Social House has something for everyone. Located at 700 Bellevue Way Northeast on the 3rd floor of Lincoln Square North, across from the cinema.
All right, we are now thrilled to welcome back our mortgage expert, Tucker Maxwell. With 6 years of experience at Guild Mortgage, Tucker stands among the top 1% of originators nationwide. His expertise lies in providing tailored loans for both real estate agents and investors. Real estate investors, both real estate and real estate investors. Sorry, I screwed that up, Tucker. Sorry about that. Welcome to the show.
Yeah, thanks, Dan.
All right, so let's talk about these down payments. When it comes to getting ready to save up enough money for it, there are many questions like, what's going on? How much do I need to save? Or I don't have any money, what can I do? So we're going to answer all of those questions today. So let's start with the different options that are available.
Yeah, so there's many different loan types that we can use, and they all vary in the down payment requirements. I think the first myth we should uncover is that you don't need 20% to buy. So just starting right off the bat, 20% is an urban myth that it's a requirement for all loan types, but it's really not. There are several different loan types, whether it be conventional, FHA, VA, or USDA, that allow for much less than 20% down.
Are you still with us?
Yeah, I'm here. Are you?
Okay,
there?
that's weird. We had another hiccup. We're having network issues today, folks. Apologize. You were saying about the conventional loans, the minimum required.
Yeah, so with conventional loans, we can do conventional loans with as little as 3% down, which is, again, an area where a lot of people think that conventional loans require 5% down, but both Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac both offer conventional options with as little as 3% down.
And right now, the conventional loans actually have the better rate than the FHA loans, right?
Absolutely, yeah. It's more tailored towards better credit profiles than worse credit profiles, but yeah, absolutely, conventional and FHA are pretty comparable today.
And what's that credit profile that we're looking for?
So on a conventional loan, you're probably looking for credit scores above 700 or 700 and above. Where it differs is in the mortgage insurance. So mortgage insurance today is a risk-based factor. So they're looking at things like down payment percentage, credit scores, number of borrowers, things like that. And so since we have private mortgage insurance involved, they're going to charge less for a great credit profile. So typically on better credit profile borrowers will typically lean towards conventional because the mortgage insurance is much less than what the FHA requires.
All right. What about FHA loans? What are the down payment requirements?
Yep. On FHA, it requires 3.5% down, typically. There are some scenarios where we may need a bigger down payment, but really the advantage of FHA is a 3.5% down payment, a great loan that is designed to help less credit positive borrowers get into loans. It's backed by the Federal Housing Administration, so they share in the default risk. So it allows us to offer competitive terms to them, to these borrowers, without us taking on too much of a default risk.
Okay, so far we've gotten 5% and 3% and 3.5%. And you said that a lower credit score possibility on these FHA loans, but there's some increased costs associated with originating it. Yeah.
Correct. Yeah. We here at Guild Mortgage specifically, we'll do FHA loans as low as 580 credit scores, which is pretty generous. Typically, most lenders are at 600 or maybe 620 to do a FHA loan, but we'll do them at 580.
580. Okay, great. The next one we have is VA loans.
Yep. So VA loans, really the true advantage of a VA loan for our active duty or retired service members is that they can do a loan with zero down. So they don't require a down payment whatsoever. And then to further that advantage is without a down payment, they also don't have mortgage insurance. So it's really a slick program as a way to thank them for their service.
Yeah. So veterans have an advantage here. We were actually talking about this today too. And there's this big lawsuit about commissions. We talked about it a couple of weeks ago here on this podcast. They're not allowed to pay commissions either.
Right. Yeah. Exactly. Yeah. And there's a certain amount that we're allowed to charge a veteran on a loan. So they cap us on total fees. Really, they've just designed it to really help them into homeownership. And it's a fantastic program for veterans.
Yeah, love that. Okay, now we're getting into the realm that zero down payment is strictly for veterans. But this next product, USDA, I understand is one that you can get away with less down.
Exactly. Yeah. USDA loan, just like the VA loans, allows for zero down or 100% financing. They're typically reserved for more of our rural areas. But Dan, to your listeners here, On the east side specifically, there are some USDA areas, especially in closer to the mountains, as you mentioned. But I would just recommend that people look into these because they typically think farmlands or, in the country, but there are actual.
I'm always thinking about USDA Prime is what I'm always thinking about.
There you go.
It's the same organization that backs this, that actually inspects the cattle, the quality of the cattle.
Right. Yeah. And the reason they offer this loan program is they try to encourage people moving to these to help build out those communities, bring resources to the area. Homeowners typically stay in their homes longer, are employed. So it's just a way to incentivize people to move to these more rural areas.
Now, do you have a map or zip code map that you plug in to determine if an area qualifies for that?
Exactly. Yep. The USDA puts out a map and we can just run an address through it.
Okay. Yeah. So you most likely can't use these for the Seattle city limits. But I'm thinking Snohomish, Snoqualmie, Falls City, North Bend, Maple Valley, parts of Issaquah would all fit depending on exactly where you're at on the map.
Absolutely. Yeah. Buckley, Enumclaw, further south too.
Yep. Okay. So now jumbo loans, these are going the other direction. This is for people that are going over 800,000 in mortgage.
So, we'll preface this with the big three, King, Pierce, and Snohomish counties. We can do conventional loans up to 977, 250. So just under $1 million, with as little as 5% down. Once they go over that amount, and I just use $1 million just as it's easy for people to remember. Once we go into that $1 million loan amount area, you're really looking at loans that require at least 10% down. And just because the risk is bigger, we're writing a bigger loan, we need to have a little bit more skin in the game from the borrower. So for jumbo loans, I would say expect 10 to 20% requirements.
10 to 20%. So it's probably closer to 20 because of the risk tolerance in order to get the best rate. Yeah.
Exactly. Yep. Exactly. And we didn't touch on debt to income ratio limits. Each of these loan types has a different amount of the income we can use on their mortgage payments and their other bills. On a jumbo loan, we're going to be more conservative with that too. So not only are we going to require more out of pocket, but we're going to make sure that there's some extra disposable income left over for these borrowers.
Okay. Awesome. All right. So then going on to second homes or investment properties.
Yep. So for second homes, we can do as little as 10% down. And I myself bought a second home with 10% down. It's a great option, but it needs to be a true second home. This can't be a home that's on Airbnb or rented out. It needs to be your second property that you spend time at. And every state has requirements as to how many days you need to occupy the property for it to be a second home. So I always make people really clear on that. Like, this needs to be your second home, your vacation property, not an investment. On an investment property, you're really looking at about 15% down, sometimes 20 or 25%. Much stricter guidelines on debt to income ratio and reserve requirements. That's the other thing that comes into play on investment properties, is we want to make sure you don't only have that minimum 15% down, but that you have 6 to 12 months left over of every mortgage payment that you have after that transaction closes, because we know as a lender, you're going to protect your home primary residence first when times get tough, and you're going to let that mortgage on that investment property go. So we're just going to, again, want more skin in the game.
Okay. So now we've talked about all conventional borrowing, but are there any programs out there that allow somebody to basically put zero down that's not USDA and that's not VA? Is there any other programs?
Yeah. So in Washington State, we have very generous down payment assistance programs. So through Washington State Housing Finance Commission, they will cover the full down payment requirement with a no interest, no payment loan. It's a little mini loan. It sits in second position on the title that will cover the full down payment requirement. And so just in the last few months, I've helped 2 families purchase through Washington State Housing Finance Commission programs. And they basically brought in enough money to cover their inspection fee and earnest money. And after that, no other money out of pocket.
Yeah, and I want to just highlight that if you're watching this and you hear, no down payment and all that stuff, there are still costs associated with purchasing that may not be able to be covered by the down payment assistance or by a credit from the seller. So just understand that, I've been able to help some some clients really have no money down, but every situation is going to be a little different, and what the bank will allow, that's important. So you should, in our next segment, you'll learn how to save more money if you need to. I know that because that's why we have him coming on here. Is there anything else? Any other way to get down payment?
Well, there's grant programs too. So depending on municipality, like the city of Seattle, up in Bellingham, down south in Tacoma, there are city programs as well that are, again, trying to incentivize home ownership in certain neighborhoods. And so they'll cover the down payment. And then a lot of us lenders have partnered with Freddie Mac and, with Guild, we have our own program as well, where we'll cover a portion of the down payment as well. So it really is specific to the borrower. But yeah, I would say if down payment is the hurdle, to talk to a lender, and you might be able to buy before you sooner than you think.
Gotcha. Okay. And then borrowing from someone or something, or even I've heard of people borrowing against their 401k.
Yeah, absolutely. So to buy a primary residence, you can take a loan against your 401k. We don't count the payment in debt to income ratio, so it's a great option there. And then you, in effect, pay yourself back over time with just increasing your 401k contribution. So that's a really great way to get down payment funds. You could use a gift. So if you have parents that are going to give you an inheritance, you could just speed that up and get an early inheritance today to buy a home. So I always ask that, is there any money that you foresee getting down the road that we can maybe tap into today?
Yeah, I mean, that's a kind of you might talk to a wealth planner, because that's a really smart way for your parents to hand down the inheritance that they plan on handing down to you and not incur as much of a tax, and we should definitely have a family and estate planner come on and talk about the tax ramifications. However, I've heard there's loopholes, and they're not really loopholes. They're just designed, the laws designed how they're designed in order to incentivize, building wealth in the family. So, man, that would be super powerful if you have a conversation with your financial advisor about how to go about this in a smart way. That's a really good way to consider.
Exactly. And then the last thing I would say is talk to your employer. A lot of employers offer some home ownership benefits. So they may cover some of that or give you some thing, because there are a lot of statistics around retention, employee retention, and home ownership. And so there's an advantage to a company to give or grant some money to their employees to help them be a homeowner, because they're more likely to stay in the area. So just another avenue to talk to. And if your human resources department doesn't offer a mortgage or a home buying resource, to talk to Dan and I, and we can come up with a plan for that company, and whether they contribute or not, we can provide services to the company.
Awesome. Love it. Well, Tucker, as always, you brought some great information. I think our listeners are going to enjoy the details on this to kind of get ready for home ownership if they haven't already. So we're going to take a short commercial break, and then we're going to do our business spotlight. So come back after this short commercial break.
Are you wearing too many hats in your small business? Finding yourself wondering where the time went? Do you ever get frustrated with technology that should just work? Then you need Nerds to Go, America's small business IT department. 425-800-NERD. At Nerds to Go, we provide friendly, professional, and reasonably priced solutions for small business owners. From network troubleshooting to hardware repair or training, let Nerds to Go be your IT department. Call Nerds to Go today. We'll come to you. 425-800-NERD. That's 425-800-NERD.
Hey, it worked. Doug, welcome to the show. Now, my introduction here is our good friend, Doug Peterson. He established Get Priority Straight in 2018, aiming to empower business owners and high-income earners in mastering personal and business cash flow. With over 18 years of coaching experience, Doug recognized a critical gap in understanding money management. GPS guides clients to reduce stress, eliminate waste, and gain clarity on their financial priorities, fostering proactive alignment of money with personal values and business goals. Welcome to the show, Doug. It's good to see you again.
It's good to see you, Dan.
Well, so today's topic is I make lots of money. Where did it go?
Well, yeah, I can go into that. But first, I need to give you a mortgage moment because Tucker missed the point. So if you take out a mortgage, a 30-year mortgage, it takes 30 years to pay it off. But if you rob a bank, you're out in 10. So follow me.
I did not know that.
Yeah.
So what you're saying is rob a bank, buy a house.
I'm working on the details.
Okay, all right. I don't know if that's the best advice that you're going to give today. So,
Okay.
So let's talk about managing your day-to-day cash flow.
Absolutely. So first off, it's not taught at all. I talked to a specialist at a bank. They said we teach financial literacy. They teach what a credit card is, what a bank account is. They don't say, what do you do with the money when you get it? How do you manage it so you have enough money to plan for kids and schooling and retirement and emergencies and gifts and birthdays? How do you do all that? Because it's a moving target and it's just not taught. Most people feel like they should know and they're ashamed to ask for help. And what I get over and over again from very sharp people is that they have never been taught.
Yeah, I totally get that 100%. So you've got 4 rules. What's the first rule?
Well, instead of having a pool of money in your bank account, which I call checkbook budgeting, do we have money? Yeah, we can buy it. You give every dollar a job. And that's the key. You first decide of all that money, not your investments and things that already have jobs, but what is that job? He mentioned in the mortgage segment, you needed 6 months worth of reserves. So that's a job for the money. So that's rule 1, is make sure every time you get money in, you allocate it down to 0 so you have a job for it.
All right. So rule number 1 is every dollar has a job. What's rule number 2?
That's embrace your true expenses. What true expenses is all those infrequent things. And some of them you can anticipate, Christmas and birthdays, and we're heading out on vacation in July. But there's a bunch of them you can't anticipate when they're going to happen, but they're going to happen. Car maintenance, maybe health issues, medical problems. We had bed bugs once. I had a shoulder replacement. I didn't plan for those things. They just happen. So you need to set aside money for medical, set aside money for emergencies, and embrace your true expenses and turn them into monthly bills.
All right. So put your money to work and then identify your true expenses. What's rule number 3?
Well, it's not putting it to work. It's actually giving it a job to do.
Oh, okay. Okay. Give your money. I'm writing it down now.
Yep. Give your money a job and then embrace your true expenses, which is really saving monthly for things that are infrequent. And the third rule is to roll with the punches. Now, if you've assigned into a category each of these expenses and stuff changes, which it always does, keep in mind that a budget is a projection, and a projection is a guess of what's going to happen in the future. What I teach is a spending plan, which is here's our money and here's where we're going to spend it. But when it changes and things shift, by rolling with the punches, you take it out of one category and put it in the next category.
Mm-hmm.
So really, all 3 rules are the same rule. Give every dollar a job for the month, give it for the infrequent things, and also reassign the job when it's appropriate so you have what you need.
Okay. So roll with the punches. Now, rule number 4.
Rule number 4 is age your money. A lot of people think they're doing well if they're paying their credit card on the due date for the balance, statement balance. If you do that, you're paying for stuff you bought 25 to 55 days ago. If you pay the credit card off in full at the end of the month, obviously you're catching up. But most people are living on next month's income. So rule 4 is start living on last month's income. Have enough money to fund the entire month before the month starts. And then people make very different decisions when they know where their money is going versus wondering where it went.
No, that's great. And your what did I hear this morning? It's poor people procrastinate. Rich people are proactive.
Yep.
Right? That concept too. And when I say rich and poor, I just want any listeners to hear that I'm not talking about circumstances. I'm talking about state of mind, right? There's a lot of financially well, earners that are poor in mindset. So I just want to make sure that our listeners understand what I mean by that is habits that will put you at peace, right? Put you at peace because that paycheck coming in, it's allocated and these things are already taken care of. And you can focus on other things because it's a high level of stress having financial issues. It's a high, number 1 or number 2 reason for divorce, right?
Yep. And that's part of what's not being taught. is, okay, the money's here. Come on, we're smart. We've been to college or not, and we are responsible adults. It's just paying bills, right? No, it's about getting your priorities clear and funding what's most important to you and knowing where it's going so you're not wasting stuff that you wouldn't do if you knew where it was going. You know, it's being proactive instead of reactive. You nailed it.
Okay, so I heard you mention something about credit float. What is that?
So credit float, you know, people go, well, I'm paying, you know, all my bills, but credit card float really means if you can't pay off your credit card in full at any time and pay all your bills, you're on the float. You're using the money and living on next month's income.
Okay, got it.
So the credit card float is very deceiving because even if you're not paying any interest because you're paying the statement balance, you're behind.
Yeah,
you're bringing in debt just to live on instead of having the money. So when you only spend money you have, you always have enough money to pay off your credit card. You can use it. In fact, the program I use sets it aside. So at any day you want, you can pay it off.
Gotcha.
And on that note, debit cards are the most easy thing to hack. So I would recommend everybody not use a debit card unless you're just using a cash machine to get cash. Because
the debit card has access to all your money, right?
Absolutely. And there's no recourse. You can't say, I dispute this.
Oh, wow. So definitely would say find some kind of credit card to protect yourself and use your strategy. So I'm going to talk about some debt reduction strategies, the snowball where you take the smallest. Tell me about that versus the GPS method.
Okay, the two most popular, the snowball, which is, and this is a Dave Ramsey thing, take the smallest amount of your debt, throw everything you can at that, pay minimums at the larger amounts. So now the smaller one gets paid off first. Now you take everything you were throwing at the small one, put it at the minimum plus all that you were throwing at the small one to pay off the next largest one. And the goal of the snowball is to see some progress. But if you're paying a lot higher interest on a bigger one, obviously it doesn't make the most financial sense. It's more of a motivation thing. The avalanche is let's pay off the highest card first, but that may have a big balance and may take a long time. So you're still paying all this stuff. Mm-hmm. What I do is, and this really ties into your mortgage strategies and real estate strategies, is most people don't understand that their credit score has a great deal with their credit utilization on unsecured debt. So that means if you have a $10,000 credit card and you've got $9,000 you owe on it, you're 90% utilized, and that'll shoot your credit score down 20, 30, 40 points. So what I do is I do a phased strategy where I help people lower the utilization rates equally on cards, even if one's a zero interest balance transfer, so that we can raise their credit score so they can apply for a HELOC or a mortgage and actually get it. Now, in the Truth in Lending Act, banks have to, even though they absolutely know you'd never qualify, offer you an application. So even though they know you're not going to qualify, they'll say, look, let's just apply and send it to our underwriters and see what they think. Well, what I do is I get them so that they can be approved before we send it to the underwriters, so they are approved and the strategy works.
Nice. So then let's talk about the last, this will be the last question, but you know, some couples are just not on the same page. How does your service help get couples on the same page?
You know, imagine someone saying, hey, you're spending too much, or we can't afford it. Those are two opinions. But imagine now that you sit down with your spouse every week for a few minutes and adjust your spending plan, and you've already allocated everything to vacations and kids' birthdays and Christmas and home maintenance and home improvement. The conversation changes to, what do we want to take it out of? Because that's how much money we have. Do we want to go into debt? And if you don't want to go into debt or take it out of somewhere else, you don't want it. But an opinion like we can't afford it, that just leaves it hanging.
Yeah, that doesn't actually, it's an ambiguous, it's almost hyperbole, right? It's hyperbole.
Yeah. One of the things I hated was having things hanging. Oh, I want a kitchen. Well, we really can't afford it. But I want one. But where's the money going to come from? Nothing's resolved.
Right.
Instead, hey, let's skip our vacations for the next 2 years and put in a kitchen. Yeah, no, I don't want to do that.
I don't want a kitchen that bad, right? Or something like that. Yeah.
But if you want the vacations that bad, we'll skip that. Let's dine out less, you know, whatever it is. And get your priorities clear.
Yeah.
You can fund those that are important.
Well, Doug, as always, I appreciate you coming on the show. How I see your number flashing across the screen. And is that the best way for people to contact you?
Well, either that, or some people want to just look at my calendar or see my website or get my email. And the easiest one, since Get Priorities Straight is kind of tough to spell. How many S's are there? Just go to schedulewithdoug.com, and that'll take you to my calendar, my phone number, website, email, everything. Just schedulewithdoug.com.
Schedulewithdoug.com. Awesome. Thank you so much for coming on the show, Doug. Appreciate it. I'm going to bring Tucker back to the show for our crosstalk. What are you guys doing this weekend? Yeah, I didn't know.
I'm getting ready. I'm renting out my basement, so I'm getting ready for a renter.
Nice. Little extra income. Way to go. Yeah. Nice. I think the rain, I enjoyed a round of golf last weekend. So that was nice. But yeah, I was thinking about going to a rugby game. Actually, there's one on Friday, down in, Tukwila. So I might do that.
And the Sounders are back in action at home this Saturday.
There you go. So there's some good things to do. I want to thank Doug. Thanks, Tucker. Appreciate our producer, Lorenz, who helped produce this in the back end. If you know of any great businesses that like to be spotlighted on the show, please reach out to us. My number's right there. Have a wonderful weekend.